Hello, darlings and dorks. Today we are going to discuss Shadow and Bone, both the book and the Netflix adaptation that premiered last April. We'll discuss the book plot and also the changes that happened with the adaptation. I had thought about giving this series a read when they were being hyped up on BookTube, but I've always seen mixed reviews about it. After watching the TV show, though, I just had to read the source material and, well, Netflix really knew what they were doing. The adaptation is really well done, and the changes that I have noticed only added to the story or improved it by a lot, by a mile, really. Overall, the book has strong points, but also a lot of unrealized potential. The premise is simple and straightforward, but the execution needed more work. The plot has its ups and downs. Certain parts of the book stalled a bit and felt unnecessary almost, but 75% of it is well paced and interesting enough, even if predictable. World building wise, it's just gorgeous and fresh. The author, Leigh Bardugo, inspired herself on Imperial Russia, which is fairly new to the YA scene, and a very interesting read. The characters, well, there are some interesting ones, but I don't feel like the author really fleshed them out. At least most of them. The magic system is clearly a soft magic system, with no rules or limitations from what I could understand. It has more to do with roles and affinity. They call it small science, as they understand that it does not come from nothing, but there isn't much in terms of how they do it or how it happens. Shadow and Bone. This is a book about a girl that knew that she was special. No joke, this is a sentence in the book. Her name is Alina. She's an orphan being raised in a wealthy duke's orphanage alongside Mal, her loyal childhood companion and later on love interest. They grow up together and start serving as soldiers of the First Army, as the Second Army is the Grisha Army, an army composed of people with powers. Grisha are seen by some as terrifying witches, and others just see them as one of the tools that the king is using for the war. A war that is happening because across the nation, a few hundred years back, an evil Grisha created a place made of darkness, the Shadowfold, that has divided the fictional land of Ravka, where our protagonist hails from. There's only death there in the Shadowfold, and the only creatures that populate it are winged monsters called Volcra. Alina's and Mal's unit is tasked with traversing the fold, and this is how Alina learns that she herself also has a special power. Now, this is it for the non-spoilery section. If you haven't seen the show or read the book, just please go and come back. Either is good for a good binge, but I'm more biased towards the show. I have read the Q&A with the author at the end of the book, and one of the questions was, what do you want the readers to remember about your books? And she answered that she would like the world to leave a lasting impression on the readers, and that's exactly what I feel about Shadow and Bone as a whole. The world building is the outstanding feature of the book, and even though the author based herself on Russian culture, she merely used it as a stepping stone. That is the reason she gives for the surnames not being properly gendered. For instance, Alina Starkov should be Alina Starkova, but I've also seen some discontentment from Russian people, given that the author only used what she saw fit. Speaking of the show, I think they really thought through the war and its consequences. We have political forces on the other side of the fold rising up against the king. The fact that Alina's physical appearance, her Shuhan features, get her in trouble simply because she looks like one of the enemies is very real also. And even having Grisha that simply want to escape the war and become refugees was a very good grounding point. These little details really sold the world's authenticity in the Netflix adaptation. Getting to the plot of the book, the juicy part, it was predictable and I had seen the show, but it's also very interesting the changes that they made, which thank God they did. First of all, they put enough importance into Alina and Mal's connection in the TV show. In the book, they get very few scenes together, and we really don't have much in terms of flashbacks either. In the show, I think there's a Meadow flashback nearly every episode. Besides that, the cinematography, the symbolism, and we will always find a way back to each other is very present. Basically, in the book, we have Mal and Alina marching with the first and second armies to travel into the fold. During a Volcra attack where Alina thinks she might lose Mal, she emits a beam of light that obliterates the Volcra. Alina is promptly taken to the Grisha Academy, aka the Little Palace, where the whole action is, and she only reunites with Mal after finding out the Darkling's nefarious plan to use the fold as a weapon. By the way, thank goodness they had the good sense of using General Kerrigan and not the Darkling. There's nothing terrifying about a creature called the Darkling, I'm sorry. Speaking of the Darkling of it all, he was a very solid character, especially in the book. Reading back all the red flags when Alina realized the trap she had fallen for was great. The show has a great cast overall, but Ben Barnes is just perfect. Also in the show we get his backstory, which humanizes him. All in all, the TV show characters seem to be more taken by Alina. By the later episodes, he even got info from Mal about Alina's favorite flowers. I mean, he was crushing hard. While Book Darkling felt more cruel and uncaring. Now that we have spoken about the foil, let's talk about the heroes. Alina.
Party.
Oh well. This book is written in first person, and I've also read Six of Crows by the same author, and the third person is a much needed improvement. Alina is quite terrible. Her agency is not existent. Things happen to her but not the other way around. She's indecisive, and worse than that, whenever any female character was mentioned or even brought up, she judged them all so harshly, be it for their appearance or their actions. And this is coming from a character that keeps mentioning how her self-esteem is so low every and each time. So yes, it was extremely fun being inside of her head. Imagine this. It's page 19. Eva is a background character that doesn't matter for the story whatsoever. And Alina's first comment about her is how she had pretty green eyes that did very little to distract from her pig-like nose. I mean, all female characters are submitted to these rather hypocritical jabs from Alina. Then, because we have so little about her story with Mal, the fact that she holds on to it through more than half of the book in the hopes of reuniting with him really does no favors for the story or the characters. TV show Alina is the opposite. Mal is drafted to cross the fold, and because there is no way for him to avoid it, she burns maps, so her unit also has to go. Their bond, even as children, has Alina protecting Mal. A major plot point in the show is Alina's palm scar. That happens because she did it so her Grisha test would be negative, so she wouldn't be separated from Mal. And in a TV show, when they start their military duty and Mal discovers Alina has been jailed for standing up for herself, he goes after the commander that offended her and gets the same punishment. And somehow he gets a matching scar on his palm. This mirroring of their feelings for each other is better than what the book exposed. That Alina got her scar from falling in love with Mal by accidentally cutting herself with a ceramic shard and not even noticing or caring, because this was a metaphor for how strong her feelings for Mal were. The show decidedly gave it further meaning, and Alina erasing it to cement cutting off her ties with Mal was just perfect. Mal, sweet baby Mal. In the books, I mainly liked his reaction towards Alina after he understood that she had been under the Darkling's influence. Thing is, we get barely any time with him, both TV show and book. The book at least gives us a bit more time between Mal and Alina, especially when they are runaways. Overall, he seems to be a good guy, but I wish we could see more of his personality shining through. I mean, he did have the guts to fight the Darkling one-on-one, but we just need more backstory and more personality. Speaking of more, a change for the better was the outcome of what happened on the skiff, also known as the boats they used to cross the fold. So Alina finds the Darkling's plan, but she ends up having to wear Morozov's collar anyway. They cross the fold with an audience of ambassadors and envoyees from Fjerda, the Shuhan, Ketterdam, etc. In the TV show, Kerrigan has Ivan killing them as they attempt to help Alina. In the book, well, no one attempts to shift sides or go against the Darkling, so first Alina abandons the skiff with Mal, and then as she learns that she's also able to do the cut, she does it and then leaves. Because that's the mercy she learned from the Darkling. In one word, that was messy. I could potentially be on board depending on the story the author wanted to tell, but I don't think this is one of those stories.
Not this.
Therefore, I do believe the show made a good decision in keeping our hero on the good side, aka not killing everybody, including innocent people. I've also read Six of Crows. I have a whole video ranting about how I hate Kaz Brekker, and surprise! I don't mind Show Kaz. In fact, I kinda like him.
Wait a minute!
The group as a whole was a great addition to Shadow and Bone. I think they were golden as comedic relief, but they also moved the story along. The show's first season served as an actual prequel to their story in the book, so Inej's indenture is still being paid by Kaz, and Jasper already has a gambling problem. But I think the relationship between Inej and Kaz is much better. He actually listens to her, not everything is gloom and doom, and he respects what she believes in. The only slight problem is his relationship with Becca Rowlands, his mortal enemy. In the show, when he's first confronted by him, Kaz is very, very obvious that there is something in their past that connects both of them, which is not the smartest move, but I still think Show Kaz is superior in lots of aspects. We are given hints, and we as an audience can take the same guess as him. The Link's flush doesn't come out of nowhere. Unlike the books, his logic is not privy only to him. But enough about the bastard of the barrel. Jasper is just great all around, and Inej is just perfect. Nina and Matthias' story being out of the way like this, I think benefits the show. I wish there was more time or scenes between them before everything goes to hell, but hey, they were very faithful to the books. In terms of minor characters, I'd like to do two honorable mentions, Genya Saffin and Zoya Nazilensky. Genya was great, both in the book and the show. I just have one scene that I absolutely hate, that just shows how Book Alina is a pure hypocrite, and it's when Alina receives a black kafta from the Darkling that bears his symbol, so that she can attend the Winter Fete. And what does Genya do? She kicks out Zoya, that is also getting ready, out of her own room, with no other reason than to see Zoya's face while Alina wore those clothes and showed the Darkling's blatant favoritism. I never felt more like I was back in high school, and Genya and Alina were petty mean girls. And mind you, Zoya is clearly set up in the book to be the archetypal mean girl, but then we have a scene like this. Anyway, positive points are Genya's tragic backstory and how she dealt with it, has great layers and motives, and she mirrors Alina to a certain degree. Giving Zoya the background of being from the village that the Darkling engulfs with the Fold was well thought out. Her changing sides felt very organic within the story. Season 2, I think, will be where the actual Six of Crows storyline kicks off, so no surprises there. I think the first and second episodes maybe will have Alina and Mal one-on-one, being fugitives and whatnot, and the Darkling, likely he'll gather his army and try to squash the unrest that he created, that is, if he doesn't die from making or controlling the Volcra. Anyway, I think I should also mention that the show greatly profits from the fact that the Shadow and Bone trilogy is complete. The Six of Crows duology also is, and the Kingdom of Scars already has the first two novels out. The universe is well expanded, and the author is working in collaboration with Netflix, and for all the hate I have for Kaz, I can see the giant leap Leigh Bardugo had from the Shadow and Bone trilogy to the Six of Crows duology that has better characters all around, better pace, and continues her great work world building wise. To me, her growth was great, and all the details added and changes that were made to the adaptation gave her story the perfect chance. So that is it for this video. Comment down below your favorite character from the show, or maybe your favorite Shadow and Bone character and your favorite crow. And tell me how you feel about the adaptation, but please no spoilers for the book, please. Have a nice day, be kind, and goodbye.